Well, 3 more cases of monkeypox have been confirmed in Aotearoa. Te Whatu Ora Health New Zealand has confirmed 2 new infections in Tamaki Makaurau and 1 in the Waikato region. They bring the total to 23 confirmed cases, both active and recovered. Well, joining me now is Auckland University's Dr. Adrian Ludlam, an infectious disease researcher. Thanks for joining us, Adrian. Look, we've got growing community transmission of monkeypox in New Zealand. Where is this outbreak headed, do you think?
Yeah, that's $1 million question. This is really an unprecedented, we love that word, unprecedented situation. It's affecting over 109 countries. But fortunately, we're seeing an overall decline globally in most of the areas that are already affected. But generally what we see in those places that have been affected is 2 scenarios playing out. Firstly, one is kind of engagement and resourcing of those communities affected, and that can lead to this controlling. And secondly, this kind of lack of engagement and or resourcing with those communities. And this kind of leads to this continued spread, and which can eventually lead, as we've seen in some countries like Brazil and some parts of the US now, reaching outside of that gay, bisexual and men who have sex with men population into the wider population.
And what happens if it gets out into the wider population then?
That's a great question. I mean, what we've seen so far is that the transmission is really primarily through sexual contact so far, with some other transmission routes, including that kind of close bodily contact, those sharing of bedding and other kind of clothing as well. And so if we see that those other forms of transmission, but beyond the sexual contact that come in, places that situations where there's a lot of kind of overcrowding, a lot of sharing of resources, of items of clothing and other things in houses, can potentially lead to that spread. And we certainly know that we have a few of those populations here in New Zealand.
Well, so the government says we should get our vaccine order delivered by the end of the year. Is that soon enough?
As with all vaccines, it's generally best to give them before you are exposed. So obviously the sooner the better. Unfortunately, we're finding ourselves in another situation similar to those kind of days that we might remember from COVID-19, which is that there isn't really a specific vaccine for this disease. We have a smallpox vaccine that's been shown to be about 85% effective. So that's really good news. But unfortunately, we've also got a limited capacity for production of this vaccine, and that means that there's a limited supply available. And so what we have seen in this situation again, like we saw in COVID, is that these countries are kind of in this bidding scenario for those doses and kind of making their cases to receive it.
So we just have to hope that we get this vaccine before this wider spread happens. We'll keep our fingers crossed. Also, this virus has an ultra-long incubation period. I find that really interesting, 21 days. What are the implications of that?
Yeah, it's quite unlike COVID. So, you know, we have 7 days there, so not long to look out for symptoms, but 21 days can be quite a period of time for people to keep an eye out. So obviously, if you feel like you have been a contact, the best response is to keep an eye on those symptoms. But unfortunately, they can be quite hard to spot, or kind of in areas that are hard to see, particularly when we're talking about the lesion. This can be limited to certain areas that are hard to spot. I'll leave your imagination there. But equally, we also see that it has a long infectious period. So during the incubation period, you're actually not infectious, so that's good. That's really good for our control. We don't have to worry about that too much. But when you do develop those symptoms, those lesions, that's when you become infectious, and you do have to isolate until you're fully recovered from those, and that includes having those lesions kind of scabbed and then healed over, which can take up to 4 weeks. And that's a long period of time for someone to be kind of fully isolated within their household.
It is. Dr. Adrian Ludlam, thanks for your expertise this evening.
No worries. Thank you.